Have you ever wondered what happened to the 12 apostles after Jesus ascended into heaven? We all know their names: Peter, Andrew, James, John, but the Bible tells us surprisingly little about their later lives. What journeys did they undertake? What trials did they face? And how did these men, who once hid in fear, become fearless martyrs for their faith? Today, we're uncovering the untold stories, the forgotten histories, and the dramatic final moments of Jesus' closest followers. This is the story of the apostles after the cross, a tale of faith, sacrifice, and the explosive growth of a movement that would change the world forever. Let's begin with Andrew, Peter's brother. After Pentecost, tradition tells us Andrew traveled far and wide, venturing into lands we now know as Georgia, Ukraine, and Russia. He became known as the Apostle to the Scythians. His journey was one of immense hardship, preaching to tribes who had never heard the name of Jesus. His mission ultimately led him to Patras, in Greece. It was there he faced his final test. Accused of turning people away from the old gods, Andrew was condemned to death. But he didn't see it as a defeat. He saw it as his final act of service. He requested to be crucified on an X-shaped cross, feeling unworthy to die in the same manner as his Lord. For 2 days, he hung there, not in silence, but continuing to preach to the crowds who gathered, his voice a beacon of faith until his last breath. Next, we turn to James, the son of Zebedee and brother of John. And like many of the others whose stories are pieced together from tradition, James's death is one of the few recorded directly in the Bible, in the book of Acts. He was a fiery and passionate man, one of the sons of thunder. His powerful preaching in Jerusalem drew the ire of King Herod Agrippa, who was eager to please the religious leaders. In a swift and brutal act of political persecution, Herod had James arrested and executed by the sword. He was the first of the 12 to be martyred, his death a shocking blow to the early church. It was a stark reminder of the danger they all faced. Yet, instead of scattering them, James's martyrdom solidified their resolve. It showed that the path they walked was one of ultimate sacrifice, a path they were all willing to follow. And what about Thomas, forever known as Doubting Thomas? His journey is one of the most fascinating. After his famous encounter with the resurrected Christ, his doubt transformed into an unshakable faith that took him further than almost any other apostle. Tradition strongly suggests that Thomas traveled all the way to India. Imagine that, crossing deserts, mountains, and seas to bring the gospel to a land of ancient and complex beliefs. He established several churches, particularly in the Kerala region, and the Christian communities he founded there, known as the St. Thomas Christians, still exist today. His mission was successful, but it was not without peril. He faced opposition from local leaders who saw his message as a threat. According to tradition, he was martyred near modern-day Chennai, speared to death while in prayer. The man who once needed to see to believe, died for a faith he could no longer see, but knew in his heart. Let's talk about the Apostle Matthew, the tax collector. After leaving his lucrative but despised profession to follow Jesus, Matthew's life was completely transformed. He is, of course, credited with writing the Gospel of Matthew, a foundational text of our faith. But what happened after he put down his pen? The accounts of his later life vary, which is common for many of the apostles. Some traditions say he preached in Persia and the land of the Medes. Others place him in Ethiopia. In one of the most prominent accounts, Matthew's ministry in Ethiopia was incredibly fruitful. He performed miracles and converted many, including the royal family. However, this angered a local king who wanted to marry the princess, a woman who had dedicated her life to God because of Matthew's teachings. Enraged, the king ordered Matthew's death. He was slain by a swordsman at the altar while celebrating the Eucharist, dying in the very act of worship. From a tax collector's booth to a martyr's altar, Matthew's journey was a testament to the power of redemption. Now, we come to a duo, Philip and Bartholomew, who is often identified as Nathanael. These two are frequently mentioned together in the Gospels, and their missionary journeys were also intertwined. They reportedly traveled to Asia Minor, specifically to the region of Phrygia. Their destination was the city of Hierapolis, a major center for pagan worship, known for its cult of a giant serpent or dragon. Philip and Bartholomew boldly confronted this idolatry, preaching the power of Christ over all false gods. The story goes that through prayer, they caused the serpent to die, and in the process, healed many who had been afflicted by its demonic influence. The local authorities and priests were furious. They seized the apostles. Philip was crucified, some accounts say upside down, and Bartholomew was also crucified alongside him. However, as Bartholomew hung on his cross, a massive earthquake struck the city. The terrified people cried out for the apostles to be released, believing it was divine judgment. They managed to free Bartholomew, but it was too late for Philip. Bartholomew, though wounded, continued his ministry, eventually traveling to Armenia, where he, too, would ultimately face a brutal martyrdom. Let's not forget the other James, known as James the Less, and Jude, also called Thaddeus. Their stories are often less detailed, but no less significant. James the Less is believed to have preached in Syria and Persia. Jude is said to have traveled with Simon the Zealot. Their partnership took them through Mesopotamia, Libya, and Persia. It was in Persia where they met their end. After converting multitudes and challenging the local pagan priests, they were overwhelmed by a mob. Jude was clubbed to death, and Simon the Zealot was sawn in half. Their shared mission and shared martyrdom underscore the powerful bond forged between these men as they carried out the Great Comissio. And together, facing the darkest of opposition with unwavering courage. And then there's Peter, the rock upon whom Jesus said he would build his church, after leading the church in Jerusalem. Peter's journey eventually took him to the heart of the Roman Empire, to Rome itself. There, he preached tirelessly, strengthening the believers during a time of intense persecution under the Emperor Nero. When the Great Fire of Rome broke out, Nero blamed the Christians, unleashing a wave of horrific torture and executions. Peter was arrested, according to tradition. As he was being led to his execution, he declared himself unworthy to be crucified in the same manner as his Lord. He requested to be crucified upside down. The Roman soldiers, perhaps mocking his humility, granted his request. His death was a powerful, final sermon, a symbol of his complete submission to Christ, even in his final, agonizing moments. His tomb is believed to lie beneath the great basilica in Vatican City that bears his name. Finally, we have John, the beloved disciple. Of all the 12, his story ends differently. John was the only apostle not to die a martyr's death, but it wasn't for a lack of trying on his enemies' part. He led the church in Ephesus for many years. During a wave of persecution under the Emperor Domitian, John was arrested and exiled to the desolate island of Patmos. It was there, in that lonely place, that he received the heavenly vision that he recorded in the book of Revelation. Before his exile, one tradition holds that he was thrown into a cauldron of boiling oil in Rome, yet miraculously emerged unharmed. After the emperor's death, John was released and returned to Ephesus, where he lived to an old age, continually teaching one simple, powerful message: little children, love one another. He passed away peacefully, his long life a testament to God's preserving power and his enduring love. From fishermen and tax collectors to founders of the global church, the journeys of the 12 apostles are a powerful epic of faith in action. They faced down empires, crossed continents, and stared death in the face, not with fear, but with hope. Their stories are not just ancient history, they are a challenge to us today. They show us what it means to live a life completely sold out for the gospel. Their legacy isn't written in stone monuments, but in the countless lives transformed by the message they carried to the ends of the earth. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story has inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories of the Bible. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the truth.